You know, you never realize how just awful your fashion sense is going to become. Because I always used to make fun of people who dressed like this when I was younger. You had those people in school professors who'd always have their hair up in a bun and just throw whatever on. That's me now. I'm actually heading out to teach looking like this. Something's gone wrong somewhere. So I thought I'd do a story time today. Okay, so story time. Now, when I was in my mid-20s, I worked in a corporation in London. When I say corporation, it was more a medium-sized company, a couple hundred employees. It was in the communication sector. It was based in North London, had a very good reputation across the city, really nice, well respected, and they had a bit of a recruitment drive. So I ended up working there in my mid-20s for about a year. Now, when I was there, the company was very evolved. There were like so many people who, quite well educated. I wouldn't say it was an entry-level position. You had to have had a job before to do this job. Because there was a lot of heavy writing, a lot of note-taking, a lot of communication with the clients. So it was really, you had to have the social skills. Right, so this is where it gets interesting. So one day I worked in sort of like a sales team. It was all over the place. It was like a sales team. And we had a guy join us. His name was Robert. I will call him Robert for privacy reasons. He was from South Africa. He seemed really nice, really friendly, educated, and he seemed to have so many positive attributes. Well, in my team, there were quite a few of us internationals. There were 2 Nigerians. I was one of 2 Nigerians. The other Nigerian, he was a lovely guy. He was an Igbo boy, Igbo man, and he was overseeing the team. And then we had another South African, and we had, a couple of people here and there. So it was quite an international team, really lovely company. However, with this new guy, Robert, we found that we needed to, he acted as an intermediary between us and some of the clients. So he'd have contact with the clients, and then he'd pass the information over to us. We found about 6 days into his, him in the job, that he didn't seem to want to write anything down. He didn't seem to want to read anything, he just seemed to want to do things his own way, which we found strange because we had a in-house software system where all the information went on it, and when we found that instead he was sort of writing in little bits and bobs on his table or on his desk, or writing his notes in a certain way, and we couldn't really understand what was being written. So I needed a report from him, and this is still a week into the new job, and I said to the guy who was above us, our team lead, I said, look, I need the report from him. He hasn't sent anything in. I don't want to badger him because he's new. So what do I do? And my superior was like, no, we have to ask him because we're on a deadline. We have some new software coming in. It's all very important. I went to ask him. He was very quiet about it. He said, oh yeah, it'll be ready. And he just seemed a bit stressed out. Like he wasn't coping. And I didn't get it because he was new to the job. And we made it very easy for him. We'd onboarded him, I believe, quite well. We'd welcomed him into the company. We'd given him everything that he needed. I let it go, and I sort of wrote the report from my end, so I didn't really let on that he hadn't sent it over to me. However, the next week, he got away with that for 1 week, but the next week, there were little whisperings here and there about, there were a few reports about, Robert, what's happening with this report, what's going on, what's this, what's that. And then one of the general managers pulled me aside and he said, have you noticed anything odd about Robert? And I said, yeah, he's a bit quiet. He likes to do things his way. That was my thinking. He likes to do things his way, but he seems like a nice guy. I wasn't really sure what was going on behind the scenes. I knew something was wrong, but we couldn't put our finger on what was wrong. General manager says, okay, he leaves the branch. One of the other managers comes over. His name was Adam, and he goes, okay, something's wrong with the new guy. We don't know what it is. Like, what do you mean? Is he aggressive? Is he not a team player? What is going on? And we're like, we don't know, but something's not right, but we don't know what it is. Now, Adam was American. He didn't beat about the bush. He said, we think he's hiding something. Now I'm thinking, hiding something? What do you mean hiding something? What could he be hiding? And I think when you work in teams, in corporate environments, when it's very close-knit teams and you work together, you have to trust each other, you have to trust the process, you have to trust that the other person knows what they're doing, because at the end of the day, you guys, as a team, you're all looking after client accounts, you're all responsible for clients, and the more clients that come into the company, the better for, the better for the company and the better for everyone. Well, that's what we like to tell ourselves. Anyway, so that only, and this was like about 6 days of him working with us, that only intensified the distrust, because we thought, okay, if we all believe something is wrong with him, but he's hiding something, but we don't know what it is. I knew something was up with him, but I could not put my finger on it, and this is where it gets really, really tricky. So it sort of led to a weird feeling in the teams. I didn't work that closely with Robert because I worked for an intermediary team, so I didn't work that closely with him. But I know that the feeling in the offices was a bit weird, because we knew something was up and he was sort of slowing us down. I've never seen anyone work as slowly as he does. He was so slow in every sense of the word. And it got to the point where the next week I came in, and it was a Monday morning, and everything just got worse, because I saw one of the general managers. He's so lovely. He was speaking to our immediate manager, and they were speaking in hushed whispers. When I approached, the general manager quickly walked away, like, hello, Oyinda, bye, because he didn't want to. There was something afoot. Then my Nigerian colleague, who's our manager, he asked me, he pulled me aside and he said, have you seen any of notes? And I thought, no, I haven't seen any of his notes, because I don't sit next to him. When I've asked him to write me a report or write me a message sent over a message from a client, he hasn't done it, so I've just sort of gone back and predicted what the client would have said, which I really shouldn't do, but I just wanted to get it done. He took me over to his desk and he showed me notes that Robert had written. First of all, these were notes that were uploaded to the company software, the computer where we stored all our notes, and it was password protected, data protected, everything. I could not make head or tail of what he was trying to say. I did not understand anything. It looked like someone had just hit a keyboard, just pressed down on a keyboard, and just randomly selected letters and words. Nothing made any sense. It wasn't even any form of a language. It was just gobbledygook. I thought, what's happening, And I innocently asked, did he have a stroke? Was he not feeling well? What's happened? And my colleague said, no, because these are his written notes. And my colleague showed me his written notes that he'd filled in a few days prior. And it was the same thing. And I thought, what's going on? Because it was all illegible. Not only, even when it was handwritten, it was worse, because it was illegible. You could not it made no sense whatsoever. And then we thought, where do we go from here? Now, this was going to be a big issue, because we had some really big communications companies that Robert had contact with, but we didn't know what had been said. So we'd had to go back, and luckily his calls were recorded, We had to go back and trawl through all the recordings, which took a great amount of time. All the recordings, all the calls he'd taken, all the communications he'd received, we had to go back and go through everything and get the gist of what the client wanted, because it would be very embarrassing to go back to the client and say, oh yeah, you spoke to our colleague, but stuff happened. We don't have the notes anymore. Could you repeat what you said? No, because some of these companies were huge companies, FTSE companies, Fortune 500, huge companies. We were not about to embarrass ourselves. What was worse was that some orders that should have been processed the week prior, when he started, had not gone through because the teams who would have processed the orders had not gotten any of his notes, and if they had gotten anything, they had to go back and try and figure out what on earth was going on, because everything was illegible, could not be understood. So by then, the managing directors had gotten wind of it, and they started coming down to the offices. It was very, very embarrassing for everybody involved. And I felt so sorry for the immediate managers, because they did not hire him. They did not hire this guy. They simply took him on good faith from HR and the hiring manager. The question now was how the company had hired someone who could not write. And then we very quickly figured out that he couldn't read, nor could he write. And I mean, maybe if you're really focused, he could handle certain words, like small words like in, very basic words. So that was because he spoke very well. He spoke extremely well, and that was the issue. He couldn't read, he could not write. But because he was very well put together, he was able to get the job. We later found out as well that his CV had been written by a company, and they'd falsified everything. His CV had been written by a company that he paid, and that was the CV he presented to us, and he'd managed to get the references as well. And I think they had not been as thorough with the reference checks, because I think only one reference had come back, and it wasn't from a company, it was a personal reference. So when you wonder why people want references so bad, this is the reason why. So the issue was now how he was obviously brought up in a loving way, we assumed, but why he did not have any literacy skills, It was very interesting because our other South African colleague, who had sort of kept away from the whole mess, this guy, I love him, Klaus, his name was Klaus, he just sat in his corner of the building and just kept doing his work. If minding your own business was a job, that was him. He just sat there, did not get involved, minded his business, just kept going. So the question was how, okay, we know he's illiterate, but how did he get to that point? Klaus explained it all. He said that speaking to Daniel briefly, because they both found out they were both South African, speaking to Daniel briefly, he realized that Daniel said to him that, we didn't bother with an education, which to me is bizarre, because it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because they were always going to make money, or they were always going to have access to resources. So their biggest competitors in the country would have been the black people, but because they believed that they were going to be kept down, that he didn't apply himself. So I think apparently they didn't think he actually went to school, or he missed out on a lot of school. And then the story got worse, because speaking to Robert, asking this guy himself, he explained that he got married at 14. Why would you get married at 14? Don't you finish school? Don't you want to go into university? No, that wasn't the plan. He got married at 14, had a baby a year later, and then his wife was 26 years old when they got married. Why would a 26-year-old woman marry a 14-year-old? So there were so many disturbing aspects to the whole story, because not only had his parents deprived him of his education, they deprived him of his teenage years as well, because he got married and he had a kid. I think about a year to 9 months later. And I think when we got the full story of what had happened, what his story was, we were just flabbergasted, and we were really shocked, because you should never plan your success on someone else's demise or downfall. You should never plan your success on keeping somebody down. No way. I know it was sad that his parents had thought that way, but all they'd actually done was just completely kneecapped him. They just completely cut him off at the knees. So he was, when we finally met him, it was 26. He couldn't read, couldn't write, had kids very young, and had been in a marriage very young as well. And when we asked him about his wife, he said, he loved her. He loved her, but he wasn't sure. And for me, it was just, the whole thing was just very, very sad. But it was just a good reminder that you never plan your success in someone else's downfall. Because this happened so many years ago, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. Because the story, the entire thing, was so strange. It was so bizarre. I mean, he got fired. He got terminated that same day. He got terminated on a Tuesday morning when we actually figured out what was going on, because, apart from the fact that literacy was very high, was required in the job, he couldn't do the job at that time. And then we lost quite a bit of work, and we had to sort of play catch up. So the directors were not happy with that, and he was fired on the spot. I don't think he probably would have gotten the week's pay, but it was very, very bad. And this was in London as well. London, if you're not ready for it, London can be an unforgiving city, absolutely unforgiving. And if you're not ready, getting into London is like going on a treadmill, and you have to just keep running, and you have to keep the pace, because if you lose the pace, you fly off. And it's hard to get back on, especially without much money or an education, reading or writing skills. So it was a story I wanted to tell because I thought it was just really important, and it's something that still fascinates me till today. And I hope that wherever he is doing well. But this world now is so competitive, and if you're not ready for it, you get chewed up and you get, spat out. But I hope wherever he is, he's doing well, and he's thriving, and he's picked up on his literacy skills, because those are very, very, very important. Literally being able to read and write and speak will make your life a lot easier, especially if you can do it very well. Anyway, that was the story. I will see you all in the next video. Love you. Bye.